Thank you very much for joining me this evening just to have a bit of a conversation around leveraging AI in arboriculture. Now, this presentation this evening, it's not going to be sort of that high technical level. It really is going to be more or less looking at the most common AI programs that are out there currently and how we can use those to sort of make our lives a little bit easier for doing a range of tasks. Now, I'm going to assume in the audience we have a mixture of people that are on the tools, that are writing reports, possibly from educational backgrounds, possibly from local government. So I've tried to tailor this so that there is something in here for everyone. So today we are going to be looking at what is AI. Have a quick look at some of the AI programs out there this evening. I'm actually just going to be focusing on one, ChatGPT, which is the one that I think most people are well aware of. We're going to look at how we can use AI to assist us with report writing, potentially using AI to assist with the development of tenders and quotes, how we can use AI in client communication, and then looking at some of the limitations of AI and best industry practice. So starting off with what is AI, it's an abbreviation for artificial intelligence and essentially is referring to any computing system that's designed to simulate human intelligence. Now, the interesting thing is there has been a really big uptick of AI programs, but for those of you out there that have been using Excel for possibly decades, Excel is probably one of the most commonly recognised types of AI. So many of you have probably been using it for a while. And in the context of communication, AI uses natural language processing to understand, generate, and refine text based on large amounts of training. So essentially, every AI program before it goes live gets a whole bunch of training to understand the structure of a particular language. And in this case, most AIs that I'm aware of are based in English. And it also uses information that it draws from online. Now, some of the common AI programs that are on the market, ChatGPT, pretty useful for generating structured reports, professional writing, summarising information and regulations. Google released its own AI, which was formerly called Bard. It's now called Gemini. And for those people that do use Google, you're probably seeing Gemini popping up wanting to assist you. It can be useful for technical writing and data interpretation. Then there's another program called Claude, which is sort of a bit more aimed at creative writing and interactions or communications with humans. DeepSeek is probably one of the newest AI programs on the market. And below those two, I've just listed two programs, Grammarly and Tome. Now, Grammarly, again, it's an AI program, and it's sort of like a souped up version of the spell check that we normally have in Microsoft. I really enjoy using Grammarly because it can help you set the tone of an email or a text, because sometimes often when we are sort of writing an email to a client at the end of the day, we might be a little bit short, or we might be prone to some spelling mistakes or grammatical errors, and Grammarly will pick that up. And for those people that have to do presentations like I am this evening, Tome is a really good AI application for generating presentations and images to go for those prezzies. I've got this little table here, and I think after the presentation I'll share this with Shane to distribute amongst community. We've got this little table here, what each app is sort of best for, where its strengths are, where its weaknesses are, where there are free versions, because we all like to try before we buy, and then the costs associated with the paid versions. Now, understanding AI for written communication. So, it's important to understand that no matter what AI program you are using, it will have limitations. We're working with machine robots that have information and lots of information input into them, okay? But they are not capable of replacing human judgment or nuanced situations. When it comes to what AI spits out for you, it's really going to be determined by the quality of the information that you will be putting into the program. So garbage in versus garbage out, gold in, gold out, and that's really important. Data sources, and that sort of ties back to your accuracy of data. So when you are feeding your AI bot information, for example, you might give it some data and then say, how does AS4970 apply to this particular situation? If you don't tell it that we're after the most recent version of that, which was this year, then it'll draw on that information from outdated sources. AI can be combined with your own expertise, right? And the more time you spend using AI, the more AI will get to know your subject matter. So my own ChatGPT knows quite a lot about trees these days and legislation and education. Um, but the key thing here is, as humans, we are capable of that abstract thought. We're capable of understanding that nuanced information and our clients' needs, etc., etc. AI doesn't have that ability and it doesn't have that knowledge. And you can share that with AI, but you cannot assume that it understands that an individual has an aversion to a particular kind of species of tree or a particular kind of flower or whatever. We will talk towards the end of the presentation about data privacy. And this is pretty important because anything that you put into open source software builds on the knowledge that that machine has, okay? And this is really pretty important when it comes to data privacy and the Privacy Act. And I'll be running I'll be using ChatGPT to run a couple of case studies, but in these case studies, I'll sort of demonstrate ways where you can still maintain that privacy and get a good outcome without sort of being in breach of privacy laws. And that point sort of follows on here, that continuous learning. Now, that continuous learning is a two-way street. The AI program that you use will learn with you, and then over time, you're going to learn with your what prompts will give you the best outcomes for your AI bot there. And of course, you can use AI to integrate with existing systems such as GIS or customer service request systems. And we're certainly not going to cover that. I'm an arborist first and foremost, not an IT whiz. But these are some of the things that we need to consider when we're using AI for written communication. So I suppose the first, I'm just sort of going to pause there. Does anyone have any questions so far?
We don't see any hands up, Beck.
No? Okay, great. Perfect. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to look at is potentially using AI to assist with writing arborist reports. So for those people that have been in industry for a very long time, you probably already have your own templates in place, but if you're new to industry and you're still kind of working out your style, this can be particularly useful. So when you're giving your AI the direction that you want, it's really important to define the report structure. So what structure do you want in your report? Are you going to have an executive summary? Are you going to have an introduction? Are you going to have your limitations and assumptions, your site observations, your tree observations? You have to let your AI know what structure that you want them to use. It can be, and as you use that AI over time, excuse me, what you'll notice is that your bot learns that in every single report, you're referencing the same planning scheme, or you're referencing a really similar local law for a particular area. It can also assist in refining report selections. And I certainly find when I'm writing reports, there's so much information that you want to sort of distill down in things like your discussion and your recommendation. And often we can spend hours sort of refining a particular paragraph to say everything that we want it to say. And AI is really useful in this respect to help refine that information. We can also use it to interpret the data that we have collected. And again, it's really good at summarising the report, so assisting with the development of your executive summaries and your conclusions. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen here and start sharing my ChatGPT screen. Now, when you have the free version of ChatGPT, it's 0.3 and it's pretty good, right? That you don't have to sign up to it. If you pay for the paid version, Chat's ability to review and assess information, so reports and other documentation, is massively increased. At 0.4, it also has the capacity to render images as well, which can be really useful. But for the purpose of this activity, I have a data set that I'm going to pop in to ChatGPT. So here's some data I presented earlier, and that data set is pretty typical tree data set. So what I've just popped in there: tree number, common name, type, age, all of the normal stuff that we would collect. So I've popped that information in there, and now we're going to actually start giving Chat some of the prompts. I want Chat to turn this into a draft report, say, for example, a preliminary ARB assessment. So I'm going to do a little bit of typing. I love typing in front of people because you can all see how terrible a speller I am, but thankfully ChatGPT understands that I'm a terrible speller and still is able to understand the general gist. Okay, so this is my first prompt. I'm telling AI, this is the report that I want to make. Now, bearing in mind, we were talking about privacy before, it's not a bad idea for your client's privacy and for your business privacy that you put some placeholders in here. So please write a draft prelim ARB report. The site is, and we're going to just put, and I would recommend everyone do this, a mock site name. Okay, so once Chat has written your report, you can copy and paste that into a Word document and then put all of that identifying information in your report. But I strongly recommend that personalised information you're not putting into Chat, because as I said, it's going to remember and it's going to learn those pieces of information. Okay, so your basic stuff. Who are we doing the report for? Where was it done? Um, because I've been using my little bot for a while, it knows who I am. So it's going to generate some of that stuff. So when you start doing this yourself, it probably won't recognize who you are, but over time it will recognize who you are. So we've got who's doing it, where it is, when we did it, and then I'm going to give chat some prompts about the data that I've put in there. So use Okay, so we've got some really general kind of prompts for what we want for our report, and we've got the data set now. And I'm just going to hit the up. Also, probably worth knowing that ChatGPT is used a lot in the States by a lot of people. So at different times of day, it can be a little bit laggy. You also have the option of asking chat to do these things one at a time. In this case, I've given it quite a few prompts, so we've got quite a bit of analysis happening. And as chat is analysing what I've asked it to do, and the data, it's giving us information. It's saying, hey, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this. You can see some programming data there. I don't want anyone to freak out. That's not what it's going to spit out at you. And you see you get these little prompts, so it's telling us what it's doing. Again, it's banging in some observations. It's telling us where we can find that. So it's analysed all of that data for us. And it's given us all of our little placeholders. Okay. And then what you can then do, so this is your basic stuff. You can then feed Grammarly a little bit more information. For example, in our methodology, you could say something like, um, please update the methodology to be paragraphs, okay, because it's in dot points currently. And now this is, as I said, ChatGPT 0.3 is the free version. I also have the paid version, and I'll turn that on for you a little bit later. But we can see with that prompt, our methodology back up here has gone from 4 dot points through to a couple of paragraphs in this section. Now, remembering, chat is using what it's learnt from me and also what it has found online. It is so crucial that anything that you take out of here, you fact check yourself. Things like current best practice, ICIS BMP tree risk assessment, right? It's grabbed that from online. Now, we have in our minimum industry standards, references here. And some of those MIS have been relatively new, and ChatGPT is using internet data from about 3 or 4 years ago. So that's why it's picking up old stuff. But again, you can contextualize this, and this is where you have that advantage of having that, I suppose, local and current knowledge to contextualize your reports to be reflecting best industry practice at each stage. Now, if you wanted to grab all of this stuff, you can highlight it all, or right at the bottom, there is a copy all little section there, and then you can cut and paste that into the reports. And again, we've got all of those little placeholders. If we were to run this same simulation using ChatGPT 4.4, what we're going to find is it's going to give us a lot more detail and a lot more fidelity in there. So again, I could probably spend an hour refining this for you, but we've got some other things to discuss. Does anyone have any questions on using AI for report writing? No? Excellent.
No hands up.
So some of the useful report writing prompts we can have in AI, and again, when you're sort of putting that information in your report and you're having a bit of a brain dump about your ideas, you can then pop some of those ideas into ChatGPT and ask it to rewrite that information for the purpose of clarity, right? Or you might put 1 or 2 lines in there and you think, I need to sort of pad that out a little bit and maybe reference this text or reference this journal article. Another one of those useful prompts is elaborate. Can you please elaborate on these 2 sentences? Simplify without losing detail. So again, these are literally phrases that you type into ChatGPT along with the text that you want it to work on. And that simplify without losing detail can be really useful if you've written quite a technical document, but that document itself is going to a member of the general public that probably doesn't understand a lot of the concepts that you're presenting and probably doesn't understand some of the jargon that we use. And I've got a bit of a demonstration on what that might look like coming up a bit later. You can also ask Chat to reduce or increase a particular sentence. If you sort of feel like you've been waffling a little bit, you can pop that paragraph into ChatGPT or any of the AI programs and ask it to reduce the content by 20%. Again, you can ask Chat to contextualize that information for a particular audience. So can you contextualize the discussion of this report for a developer, or can you contextualize the discussion of this report for a council planner who is going to be assessing my report? Show references. I would hope that when you guys start adopting this, you'll use it when you're asking AI to do a bit of research for you. Say, for example, hey AI, can you tell me if this particular tree species is endemic or remnant to a particular area? You can do that research, but I would always end that question with show references, because AI can sometimes hallucinate, and it has its own Wikipedia page in there where if it's not sure, it can make things up, okay? And this is really important. So if you're asking AI to be your field assistant to do a bit of research for you, also ask it to show where it has got that information. And what it'll do is it'll give you hyperlinks to where it found those particular pieces of info that you can then cross-reference to make sure that you are using contemporary and accurate references. And of course, tabulate information. You can put in a whole bunch of information and say, hey, can you turn this into a really lovely table that will make this information really easy to understand? So there's some important prompts. So now we're going to move to the second application of AI, which is for tenders and quotes. So we can use AI to automate research and data gathering for us. And this would be one of those cases where you could say something like, please show me your references. It can generate templates tailored to a specific tender. If you tell it what kind of standard sections that you want, it can do that. It can process the tender application document, so read it and understand what is required, and it can also do compliance checks for you for your tender submission. So you can pop in the request for tender document, then you can pop in your tender submission, and then you can ask ChatGPT, hey, have I met all of the requirements of the tender document? So I'm going to give you another little example of what that's going to look like. So we've still got ChatGPT up here. And I have a provision of tree services tender request that I've just found online. And again, I'm just going to click and drag that in here. Publicly available information.
Sorry, Beck, you're not sharing.
Ah, thank you very much. Okay, so clicked and dragged that tender request and basic prompt. Okay, and again, we've moved to that 4.0, so it's now starting to say, what more work can I do for you? So there's the letter that would go with our tender submission, and then it's saying, would you also like me to draft the full response? So the qualitative section. Now, remembering again, you've got to proof this. It's not going to be perfect, but you have to proof it. But it just takes a lot of the legwork out. It'll give you those options to contextualize your tender submission. And again, yes, can you do this? Can you do that? And again, once we have that, we can copy and paste that information into a Word document and then contextualize it for that particular tender. But the amount of typing that ChatGPT or indeed any AI is going to help us out with is quite phenomenal. I'm not quite a touch typer, and lots of arborists that I know are a 2-finger typer, so this can really assist with saving a fair bit of time. And again, we can, how are we structuring our quotes? We can tell ChatGPT if we want to be providing our quotes as dynamic prices, pre-formatted, customizable recommendations. And again, that AI can be looking at those prices when you're putting that pricing structure together, and you can say, hey, how does this compare to what's on the market? Are these prices right? And your AI can do that market research for you. Again, this is another one of those situations where I would say, please show me your references. So you're grabbing data, where are you grabbing it from? Now, this is probably one of the applications that I use AI quite a lot for. When you get quite emotionally charged emails, I wonder how many of us, particularly working in the practical side of arboriculture, get an email or a letter like this. I'm really unhappy with the work. You didn't meet the standards, you left the site messy, you damaged one of the pots, you didn't finish the job properly. And we can spend quite a bit of time, I suppose, ruminating on how we deal with these kind of emails. Got another one here for those people that work in council. You know, you didn't deal with the tree on my property, and as a ratepayer, I expect better. So what I'm going to do, again, in these instances, when we were copying and pasting these letters or these correspondence from people into our AI bot, it's really important that you remove the client's name, yeah, and any identifiable information. Okay. So again, I'm going to stop sharing, but what I'm going to do is plug that information into chat and see what it's going to come up with. No. So the first email we had was the resident that didn't like the job that had been finished. So here we have it here, and our prompt for chat is going to be, can you please write a considered response noting that we and we can tailor this. We can tailor this as well. So if, for example, for this hypothetical situation, you thought that the site had been cleared of sawdust, you might add the prompt requesting, can the client send you photographic evidence of that? And again, you can just fine tune these, but I just find rather than sitting and ruminating, and I suppose becoming emotionally engaged with being told you're no good at your job, chat takes that sort of out of the equation. So similar, here is the letter that we had to council. And again, I'm actually not going to provide a lot of direction for our bot in this stage, but we'll see what it comes up with. So again, be really kind of clear, nice, straightforward response. Again, my bot knows sort of the types of things that I would say in this case. But again, if it spits something out that you don't like, you can get it to refine or elaborate on some of these points. And I'm just going to show you one more example. So this is an email that has been written to a client, and it's really, really pretty technical. And often our clients, when we're dealing sort of with mum and dad developers, they don't have that level of technical expertise. And sometimes we're sort of like, well, I want to educate, but I don't want to dumb it down too much. Uh, I want to let our residents, I want to educate them a little bit, but not bamboozle them by using lots of jargon, which this email has. So another one of our prompts could be, so we've gone from having this initial email here, technically quite complex, to something that's a lot more easy to understand for the client. Have we got any questions? You're a quiet bunch tonight, aren't you?
Yep, we have no hands up still.
Okay. So useful writing prompts with AI. So these are the prompts that we can pop in and some of the ones that I use quite a lot. Can you write a considered, thoughtful, or kind response? Can you write a response that acknowledges the concern, but your position on the matter remains unchanged? Can you write a response that acknowledges their email and that you'll get back to them once you have further details? Okay. And you've sort of, and these are all of the different prompts we can use in this space. So we've talked about the good stuff. Let's look at AI's limitations. AI has a lack of common sense, right? It really does lack human-like understanding and often fails to make decisions based on common sense or sort of lateral thinking. It operates on patterns and data, but might struggle with situations that require that beautiful abstract reasoning that makes humans so unique. Our AI systems are inherently biased by the data that they are trained on. Okay, so ChatGPT, for example, has been trained by a lot of people in English speaking countries. And so it will have that particular bias, or it may even be sort of incomplete on the data that it has access to, which can lead to unfair outcomes in applications like hiring or law enforcement. As I mentioned earlier, data dependency, garbage in, garbage out, gold in, gold out. So AI's performance is really reliant on the quality and the quantity and the diversity of data that we put in. You could write that prompt, hey, chat, can you please write me an AIA based on this data? and it will produce something that looks like a report. If you refine those prompts, hey, AI, can you please write me a report? Here's where we did it, blah, 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 blah. This is what I would like, the touch points I'd like you to cover in the discussion section. In the conclusion section, I really want you to highlight point A, point B, point C. Then you're going to get a much better report out of the system. So data dependency. AI isn't inherently creative, and it can generate solutions based on patterns, but struggles to come up with novel ideas or innovation outside of the scope of its training. And so that's where that human element comes in, I suppose, when we're looking at an AIA. Your bot might just say, oh, no, you can't construct there because the tree protection zone of this tree is whatever it is. But as humans, we have that capacity and that creativity and the innovation to go, well, what happens if we were to cantilever the footings over the root zone? And again, your bot can learn that, but it has to be taught through you providing it with that information and you giving it the references that it needs to be confident to make those recommendations in the future. AI, because it's not human, doesn't really have any ethical concerns or responsibilities. It's not interested in privacy acts and legislation, and to that end, we really need to consider the ethics of how we use AI. For example, for things like recruitment. Many AI systems, particularly deep learning models like ChatGPT and DeepSeek, they rely on vast amounts of information, but we don't really, when it's becoming quite technical, it's often unclear how AI is making a specific decision to analyse a piece of information one way or the other. It's got those generalised limitations based on the data that has been put in, and certainly it's vulnerable to adversarial attacks. And what I mean by that is someone can come into something like ChatGPT and train the hive mind that the Occupational Health and Safety Act says that it's okay for chainsaw operators to operate a chainsaw without PPE. And if AI hears that long enough, it will go, oh yeah, I've heard this from enough people. That must be the case. And to that end, again, it is so important to make sure that you're asking your bot, you're asking your AI, where did you source that information from? Where was the reputable site? And then finally, it always is going to require human oversight. Don't ever just cut and paste something out of a chat box and hit send or make that your final report. We are in control here, and it's up to us as the humans in this relationship to make sure that the information that we're presenting is representative of what we need and what we mean. So AI and the law. So when we write using AI to write reports, several legal considerations must be taken into account to ensure that we are, as users, compliant with relevant laws and regulations. And some of those key considerations are going to be things like the Australian Privacy Act. So in this case, we don't enter sensitive or personal information into AI tools because many of them store that information. So, as I said before, use aliases. You're most welcome to use the same 14 Tree Street, Treeville. But just remember, when it comes to the finalised report, you need to contextualise that report. Another legal consideration is IP and copyright. So AI might inadvertently replicate copyrighted material, which could lead to copyright infringements. Again, it's not a bad idea to then, if you've got a report and you're using AI, run it through another AI program that identifies plagiarism, and there's quite a few on the market there, just to make sure that you're not breaching stuff like that. Accuracy and liability, always important to cross-check details with reliable sources. AI predicts responses, but it doesn't verify the facts unless, of course, you ask it to do that. Check for ethical concerns to make sure that the reports that you, or the tenders or whatever you're using your AI for, are meeting industry standards and ethical guidelines. And make sure that you're also adhering to regulatory or sector-specific compliance. So I know in a lot of local councils, they don't like the use of ChatGPT. They prefer the use of Gemini or another program like that. So if you're thinking about using AI in the workplace, just make sure that there aren't any policies in place that dictate either what AI you can use or indeed if you're allowed to use AI at all. So best practices, always review and edit anything that is generated by AI to ensure that it's accurate and compliant. Use it responsibly by avoiding entering in confidential or data sensitive information. Make sure you attribute your sources properly, so you're not just relying on AI to pull things out for you. Make sure that you're following industry regulations and include in your disclaimers that AI had a role in writing the report. Okay, so we're nearly at the end here. So AI, really powerful tool that can be used for good. It can really help us streamline our workflows, and often it can take emotion out of the responses that we have to clients or residents in the workplace. When you're using your AI, be really specific about what it is you want your AI to do with your prompts. Garbage in, garbage out, gold in, gold out. AI relies on what it has learnt in the past, whether those facts are right or wrong, to give you your answers. So it's important that you do your own fact checking. Be mindful about the information that you're putting in to make sure that it's not sensitive, and fact check. So that's my little prezi on AI. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay. I think you've explained everything too well, Beck, for people to have questions. Maybe next time you type your tell me some words to present for a lever in AI in arboriculture production, and include a few errors or misspellings so people actually ask questions later on. We're getting some appreciation from some people, so thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd be interested, just in a show of hands, who is currently using AI at the moment? Yep. Excellent. Do you find, and again, show of hands, that it has introduced efficiencies into the workplace? Yep, we're getting lots of hands and thumbs up there. That's amazing. For those people that are using, have you learnt something that you can apply moving forward, or have you learnt something that you hadn't considered before this evening? Excellent. It really is a pretty AI. It's pretty powerful, and I know a lot of people are sort of freaking out about being made redundant by AI, but until such time as AI learns abstract thinking, and that's going to be a very clever programmer, I think all of our jobs are fairly safe, and we just need to look at AI as another tool to help us with what we do in the workplace. And that's about it from me this evening. Thanks very much for listening. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you can take something away and develop some efficiencies in your workplace moving forward. Thanks
So
very much.
we're having a few people just say thank you through the chat to Beck, and with VTO, thanks Beck very much for giving us and yourself out there the hour of tonight and the time putting that presentation together. And with that, I'll say good night to you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beck.